So we are about to start the second part of our opening ceremony. You are invited to take your seats. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker. So we are still, we moved on to industry and we stay in industry. And I just said I am a chemical engineer, and it might be surprising that I'm doing sustainability, but our LCA for that matter. But you will understand even all through the interventions and speeches that LCA and sustainability, sustainable development, is interdisciplinary. And that's why also in the Institute of Sustainability for Civil Engineering in Aachen University, chaired by Mattia Traverso, we have engineers coming from different fields. We have psychrometrics, just to be sure that what is being researched and the evidence which is being considered is representative of all the different realities. It could be cultural realities, it could be economic realities, we can say also national realities. So I think the companies also who are operating in different sectors and in different realities have this challenge in implementing sustainability. And that's why I want to give the floor to the VP of Services at MarketSide, Fabian Hassel. The company focuses on integrating sustainability data in product development and regulatory reporting. And under his leadership, the team has delivered over 30 million AI-enabled life cycle assessments, advancing MarketSide's mission to accelerate sustainable innovation at scale. So prior to joining MarketSide, Fabian held senior roles at ThinkStep, Gabi, for those who know the former name, and Immusoft AS. He has conducted more than 100 manual LCA studies for major global companies, including Kraft Foods, Mondelez, Hartmann AG, Volkswagen, and MAN Hummel. He also contributed to the development of key environmental databases such as France's ADM and Germany's Ökobau-Dat, supporting data-driven sustainability efforts across Europe. It's my pleasure to call upon Fabian Hassel. Thank you.
Hello. So wonderful. It's really nice to be here, particularly because my luggage didn't arrive. And I have to say thank you to two colleagues from the Netherlands that should be somewhere in the audience who gave me some support while I was trying to buy urgently clothes to replace my travel clothes, which I was wearing. So thank you to you. Could you? Oh, I have that. Yeah, wonderful. So now I will begin with what I wrote on my first card: relax and speak slow. So what I want to talk about is what it takes to operationalize LCA data. What are the roadblocks that we are facing from a digital perspective, and how does this look from the perspective of a software vendor that is closely tied into industry? Generally, it's a big pleasure, right, to talk in front of this audience of environmental engineers, sustainability consultants, software vendors, data providers, auditors, reviewers, policymakers, right, where in one or the other situation, we aim to improve sustainability, right? We all want to solve this challenge, right, of carbon, of water, of circularity, of biodiversity. And what we really want to achieve when we think about this is we would like to achieve sustainable change for our industry, for our products, for our technologies. And what this all boils down to, in my opinion, is to enable engineers, designers, procurement, sales, and organization to make the right decision around their product with the right level of granularity and information at their hands. Not only do we want to basically help them to make decisions around eco-design, as we had heard in our speech right before, we also want them to be able to report to their own customers, maybe to authorities, to take part in competition with high quality and verified reports. And I like to give you this on an example of my everyday's work, right? So in my role, I speak very closely with industry, and one of the common conversations, and this is a true example from just a couple of weeks ago, what I built this entire presentation along with, is an industry representative who said, listen, I have to build 150,000 LCAs. In the next year, I made the math. It takes me 49 years to do so. Can you help? That's the question. That's the problem that I'm confronted with. And there's a few things that go through my head. First, how can we solve this problem? Second is, don't know yet, but I sure can. Software vendor, right? And why does he need 150,000 LCAs in a year's time? If you look below this, the question gets even a bit more complicated, right? He wants the information for 150,000 LCAs instantaneously, all modeled automatically with the least amount of human interaction for his entire product portfolio, with the ability to report this as verified reports and to distribute it within this organization and outside of his organization. Now, when we look at this, we get here a challenge. We have to think not anymore manually, because you understand 49 years is not a viable option. We have to discuss what we can do from a technology perspective and how can we do it with technology, including trust. We need to ensure that there's trust, not only at our customer that uses it, but also on the people that receive later on these results. Is this feasible? Is this good enough? Right, and in this discussion, we often come to a point where technology sets in. Lately, I would say with technology, we have this term AI, which is very high on our agenda, but we also have the term of general digital technology, digital transformation. What can we do with this, right? And when we look at what it can do, and I like to throw a few statements out here when you just look at what technologies can do. They can help us to prepare data. They can help us to fill gaps. They can enhance the quality of analysis. They can help us basically to simplify the information so that non-expert users can use that information for decision making. It allows us practically to scale insight along the organization. So what it does is when we use technology correctly, it allows us as practitioners in this field to shift how we work, right? From manual, creating models, creating results, doing analysis, to a more strategical way of thinking and working. What do we do with these results? How do we implement this in our organization to make a greater change? And that is our software vendor promise, right? So we are stepping out by saying, hey, with technology, we can help you to get to the scale. And not at least me, right? I'm since 20 years in this field, and basically part of one of these emerging startups, maybe nowadays scale-ups. And to give you a bit of the problem and how it's solved, I like to look in an entire different industry sector. It's actually not even industry, it's medical. And I've taken an example from radiology, from this nice webpage we call Lancet. And I would like to read out this title, because that's the only way I can say it. Endoscopist de-skilling wrist after exposure to AI in colonoscopy, a multi-center observational study. Says nothing to me. Luckily, I have a neuroradiologist as a wife who helped me to understand that paper. And what this boils down to is that medical doctors in cancer identification on MRI pictures sat down and took an AI and they trained it to find cancer. And they did nothing else. They sat down and marked where the cancer is, gave it to the AI gave a prediction, it was off, they corrected it. Until at one point in time, that AI became so good that it was better than the doctors themselves. Now, that is in the first instance a great thing because our patients will be identified better, We will find them. We'll figure out who has this type of cancer, and we will be able to treat them. Apparently, that AI was taught exactly one thing: find that cancer. Any sign of pre-indication was simply not visual to the AI because it wouldn't know. So the experts who relied on that tool and started to believe in this AI didn't see any pre-indication results anymore and just said the AI solves my problem. In fact, we learned two things from this, right? AI solves the problem, but it's a very specific one. That one problem we apply it on. And the other one is, please don't stop thinking, right? So you have your head to just make your mind up what a tool does for you and what it doesn't do for you. And what it doesn't do, you please fill in. Now, let's transfer this into our field. A friend of mine wrote a white paper. You'll find this all over MakerSite's webpage, and many of you may have seen this, which compares the results on LCA from a generic AI model, some LLM, with practically a generic LCA, which was trained to solve one purpose, right? And an AI which has been validated and verified and is actively in use with many of our customers. So we know it produces correct results, not only because we say it, but at least because it's in real life and it's through verification. The interesting thing, an LLM model will give you a discrepancy of results somewhere between 50 and several thousand%. You practically can't trust it. Even if it by chance will hit the right result, how would you ever know it's correct? It don't tell you any information to it. So what do we have to do as software vendors, as industry who would like to apply these technologies? We somehow have to get a certain trust and confidence into this model. And similar as you would do in the medical field where we have trained it to find cancer, you can apply it on problems on our world, on our technical world. The only thing, AI, that you please do, find the manufacturing process that is to be applied on a particular electronic component. Please make a prediction on the material composition of an engineered part. Please make a prediction on a specific spend classification for your Scope 3 reporting, whatever you need, right? You take your experts and you use your experts to train this tool. Practically, what this leads to is that we get the controlled use of a technology to give us a precise result at scale, but no one yet does trust it. Trust only come in if we look beyond what the expert do and we visualize this. We give this in the hands. We give this as a software vendor in the hand to the industry participant, to the verifier, and we explain this. And what do? Our experts that make this correction, right, use and mark the cancer, right, say what's the correct manufacturing process. We basically have them use statistical errors. We have them use threshold that define quality, right? 95% cutoff criteria. Similar things apply on technology. You find cutoff criteria and statistical measures you can run on AI technology. You use transparency in how you predict, why you predict, and you provide documentation about purpose of the AI, goal of the AI, and what makes it good, and what doesn't make it good, right? Does not make it good. This together gives us verifiable proof points of what technology can do. At the end, our results became trustable as well. So, MakerSite has itself already proven this, right? So we have run with several customers. A couple of you are already in the audience, I think, at least to my knowledge, and we'll be working with you in exactly this approach, right? How do we scale your data into digital results? But interestingly, there's not interestingly, but perfect, it's not the only thing that you need to trust in this, my word, and saying we can do it. You can look out and you can just research on studies from LCA practitioners who looked, or researchers who just looked on, right? How good are technologies and how are they used today? And there's one colleague, he's called Martin Popovits, and he wrote a paper around digital technologies for life cycle assessment, a review and integrated combination framework. And in principle, what he does, he compares how often digital terms are named in particular papers and how good the result findings of these papers are, to simplify this. And he comes to a finding where he practically says practitioners should concentrate or incorporate digital technologies into their LCA process to enhance reliability, validity, and real-world accuracy. Now, he has not only looked at AI. That is just one of the terms. He has looked for big data, for blockchain, and multiple other terms which he assessed with it. So he don't see it as one particular technology, but the combination of the digital technologies that we have today and that allow us to work today. And in fact, if you take an LLM with a high level of imprecision and you just ask how many LCAs have been done, right, using digital technologies, it's somewhere between several 100,000 up to several million. I know it's in the several millions. That's my experience and our customers' experience. But just to say, the number that is out there when you just look for it is quite high. And it's the same thing if you just look which software vendors in the space of LCA use digital technologies or AI. You instantaneously find 16 that do that. I did actually not even know that there were 16. So let's assume there's one or two of them wrong. It's still a decent number that was identified there. Now, the bigger question occurs is, what is stopping our process? Why aren't we moving forward with digital technologies, at least in our perception and in our customers' perception, as quick as we thought? What's holding us up, right? What's blocking the domino? And I like to say there's one thing which is already in place, right? So the first thing is in place. The industry needs it. The why we'll see in a bit, right? But the industry needs it and is interested to it and starts implementing this measure. Technologies that can solve it are available and can bring it forward. We have also seen this. So question remains, right? What is stopping it? And now I like to talk about a customer with whom I'm actively now having a system implemented and do the change management of their workforce from their old tool into a new tool. And the word-by-word description of what he faced, and I just got to hear it last week when I did this presentation to him and just discussed it. He said, Fabian, the feedback which I get from my users is, you know what? Manual is more precise than automated. I let this settle. Sure, right? My first day of work, from my first boss, I got to hear that one sentence, quality is a function of time. Sure, I can work manual and I can make the perfect LCA. Can I make 150,000? And can I make 150,000 in a way that people can use it? Shift that view. What do you need? If you want to have 150,000 LCA produced and you introduce error in your data, we're processing data in automation and we introduce an error. With all means, a cutoff criteria is nothing else as an error if you take it this way. If you take an error and you transfer it on a different scale of data set, the data set will still be good. Let's assume 10% error of 150,000 data sets. You still have 135,000 data points generated that your engineers, that your procurement, your sales, your designers can use to make decisions around their product now and not in 49 years when your products are obsolete and you couldn't keep up with you producing new products. Right? So we have to think, what does this technology need? But there's a simple suggestion which I also give back to my customer in that moment where I'm saying, you know what? You cannot convince a person that a technology is equally good, receives equally good quality, unless you make them start working. And instead of improving the results of one LCA, they maybe start working together with you, improving the data that you have below it, right? So your master data, your operational data improves so that you can scale upon your own corporate information. One thing was, why is the customer with the 150,000 LCAs doing it in the first beginning? He's required, right? He's required to do it. He stands in front of the challenge that authorities have given him regulations to come. I'd just like to name a few. It's a dynamic product passport, it's a battery passport, it's CPR. It's just some where data, environmental data, will in one or the other way needed to be available at scale. And per product, not per category or by some extract value, you need it per product. And companies thinking, what do I need to do to reach this regulation? And they think ahead. If I have to create 150,000 data, I can't start with this a year ahead or two. I need some time to prepare myself. So we have to keep in account that companies are preparing themselves. Despite of that, there's company policy, right? It's reputation. They have sustainable values or sustainability values for their products. They can use this in competition. They show they have the better product, not only in competition, but also to their own employees, generally to their customers. It's policies which are in place which require them to do eco-design and think about their product. It's the same we've seen with Hitachi just a moment before. Now, where does this process, from my perspective, stop? Right? And where do we find the real hurdle? And please apologize that placative headline that I like to give you right now, but I would like to say standards are either slow or they put their head entirely into the ground. We have industry, we have people, we have technology. I think we have a lot of LCA colleagues that would like to really use such technologies, but when you just think about our regulatory environment or our method environment, there's a few things to find. We have non-unified standards that like to address the same problem. If I just think around it, right, we have EPD standards, various, we have PEF standard, we have ISO standard, we have the PAS, we have PACT, and how many more? I cannot barely count them. Every time we would like to harmonize them, it's not reducing them, it's just adding one on top. It's practically impossible for industry to decide which standard, which norm, which method to follow. And the most impressive is we have so many standards out there, but there isn't a single standard that addresses how you get scale into LCA data using technology. Now, the single standard is made for automation of data. Now, maybe a bit of the reason for that is that still EPD vendors, national EPD schemes, partially think that PDF files are digital data formats. It's 2025, not 2005. I like to highlight that. We need a different type of information. And it's a great initiatives which we see out there from the data spaces, right? There's multiple of those which do exactly that. They like to standardize data exchange formats so that it's easier in the supply chain to exchange sustainability data. It's great. I hope that we just get one format and not 5, because that is what every customer then will need to comply to, or any industry vendor will need to comply to, every software vendor, every data provider will need to comply to these formats. We need harmonization. So, for my words and what I wanted to express for this is a bit of a call to the community, and that's why I do it here, as we have figured out that we can scale our sustainability initiatives, we can give people the right information in hand, but we are missing the factual one thing, a simplified standard that allows to do so. And that takes into account that digital technology is not only appearing sometime in the future, but it's here right now, yeah, and it will become more and more and more and quicker as any type of methodology adapts. Thank you very much. That was me from Makersland.
So, thank you very much. Now is the time of Emilia Moreno-Ruiz, that is the Chief Technical Officer of EcoInvent. She has been focusing her career on data for sustainability metrics for the past 15 years, most of them working for the EcoInvent Association, where she is today the Chief Technical Officer. Emilia is responsible for the databases strategy and leads the database team in charge of the development, content creation, maintenance, and publication of the EcoInvent database. She also oversees the research and development efforts around the database. Emilia holds a PhD in biology from the University of Sevilla and a master in management and sustainable development from the French ISEADD. She is going to present Reimagining the Future of Background Databases. So please welcome Emilia.
Thank you for the introduction. So I want to give you an overview of how are we imagining the future of background environmental data. But I would like to first ask a question to the audience and ask you to raise hands if you know the EcoInvent database or are using it or have ever used it. Please raise hands. Yeah, thank you very much. So EcoInvent or the EcoInvent database is a lifecycle inventory background database that had existed for the past 20 years. And it is in the field of lifecycle assessment, lifecycle management, lifecycle thinking that it's a field that has evolved enormously in those 20 years. And just to give a glimpse, that's not 20 years ago, that's just 10 years ago. So EcoInvent started as a research project, then became a center of excellence, And 10 years ago, when the picture was taken, we just spun off into a not-profit association, which is still the legal status we have today. And this is a picture of us last week. I mean, the team is not complete. And I'm not only trying to mention the increase of size because of the drives and the market pool, but also, same as life cycle assessment methodology has evolved into a methodology that came out of or transcended the realm of experts, and now results obtained with this methodology are used for or with decision makers in different places of organizations. Everyone working in this field, needed to grow their teams, not only in size, but also on diversity, on profiles that were incorporated to them, right? And technology, I mean, let's go back to how technology was, for data distribution 20 years ago. Has anyone in the audience still used those CDs for installation of the equivalent database? Yeah. This is how the versions 1 and 2 of the equivalent database were distributed, and that's how our users got them. And this is how we can distribute our database today. This is EcoQuery. It's our publication portal. You can have sophisticated searches. You can navigate the supply chain, the inventories, etc. And now it has also a beta version of an API that can serve different use cases, including potentially could be one that you might need. And if we talk about use cases, this is a number of use cases that we in eConvent can serve today. As you can see, we are not only serving lifecycle assessment, we serve a variety of use cases focusing on product, and calculation of footprint around products or around organizations. And I mean, we just heard the speaker before, the scale and the speed that it's demanded from us, and in general from the field, is unmatched. And while navigating all those use cases, and I will join the speaker before, while navigating those use cases, what are the challenges organizations are facing? I distributed this in 4 buckets, but they are very intimately related, right? The first challenge they will face is around data. They need data that is reliable, that has a level of transparency and traceability in order to understand and interpret the results that they obtain with this data. And they need a lot of it because they have to represent supply chains that are very complex, that are global, that are multi-tiered. And this will need to be done by internal teams that sometimes will not have the skills to scale data production or to interpret or to manipulate data. And this is happening in an extremely complex context. I'm not going to talk about geopolitics, but if we just look at the regulatory context, and again, picking on the ideas that were mentioned just before, regulatory context and how to ensure compliance, it's becoming a very complex issue. So what are we doing for those organizations? What is that eConvent and the eConvent database is preparing in order to serve those use cases and customers in the future? What we are preparing and have been preparing in the past years is a new version of the eConvent database that will be funded on those 3 pillars you can see here. It's funded on bringing more regionalization, bringing more data at scale, and providing more flexibility and adaptability for the uses of the database. So I would like to go through those together with you in the rest of the presentation. What do we mean when we talk about regionalization? If you look at the eConvent database, it has always improved coverage, can be regional or technological in a very incremental way. The idea with this new version is to put in place and in action strategies that allow to dramatically increase the coverage and the granularity of the supply chains. And there are 2 angles to that problem that we are working through or in. One is trade, better trade data better trade model and better trade data. And the other is coverage and granularity of the inventories of the industrial processes in the different phases of the supply chain or life cycle. So if you combine the two, you get a database that has more data and better connections between producers and consumers, creating very granular and traceable supply chains at a regional and global scale. And to build on that, we are applying regionalized impact assessment methods, and this needs to be built, of course, in a new calculation layer that it's been generated, but also needs to build on more regionally precise inventory data that is then part of the supply chains I was just mentioning before. The second aspect is data at scale, as you were mentioning before, not only from a regional perspective, but from a technological perspective. We need to be able to create more data and faster. So how are we working this through? We are moving to an economy of models where we can create for the different sectors models, parametric, deterministic, eventually probabilistic, where we can represent parts of the sector or whole sectors and create context-specific data and maintain that data at scale. This is something that it's being done together with stakeholders, bringing stakeholders on the game, and respecting and maintaining transparency and traceability, which, as you know, are part of the Econvent trademark. And finally, I would like to address flexibility and adaptability, because there is a huge number of use cases and workflows that we need to address and that we need to serve as Econvent. How can we, or the aim of the Econvent database ultimately is to make sure that we put in the hands of our customers what our customers need, and our customer can choose and adapt our data to make sure that they are really applying it in the context as they need it. So if we take just a closer look on how are we working flexibility to maximize or to facilitate compliance, we have been working on a new calculation framework that will allow us to, in a relatively fast manner, create targeted system models, so that is targeted ways of calculating the Econvent database that would be compliant with the different methodologies, regulations that the users would require for the different purposes or use cases they are facing. To summarize, we are preparing the next generation, the next version of the Econvent database that would have greater regional precision and more precise and granular supply chains, more data created at scale, and it will be flexible and adaptable so users can be sure that every version of the database they're using is fit for their purposes. Just want to invite you, if you're interested in reading more about the next version of the database we're preparing, you can download the white paper. It was just published this afternoon. Please reach us and give us comments if you want. Thank you.
Now, the last but not least presenter today, the keynote speaker, Michela Gioacchini, Head of Sustainability, Corporate Social Responsibility for TOTS Group. Michela Gioacchini is Head of Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility for TOTS. She's an accomplished industrial mechanical engineer and fashion sustainability expert with over 15 years of experience. She has held roles on both the corporate side at Hugo Boss and Consulting Group before joining TOTS Group in 2023. In this capacity, she leads the development and execution of sustainability strategy across the group and its 4 brands, overseeing a range of initiatives across environmental, social, and governance dimensions. I'm very happy to introduce Leah because we had the opportunity in 2017 or 18 to work together. So she will present communicating sustainability in luxury fashion through digital innovation. Michela, the floor is yours.
Thank you,
Marzia.
for your introduction, and thank you, everybody, for having me here today. So I'm going to tell you about the lifecycle management, how it can be used as a storytelling tool. So maybe I'll be less technical than other speakers before me, but I would like to stress the importance of LCA and lifecycle thinking for the storytelling, especially in the fashion and luxury sector, so a particular industry sector. But before that, let's go back to 2010. 2010 was the year where Steve Jobs presented the iPad to the world. It was the year when, for the first time, the first version of Instagram was launched, when the Burj Khalifa was inaugurated in Dubai, and when, not sure if you remember, but there was a massive volcano eruption in April in Iceland, and that paralyzed the air traffic in Europe for more than a week. In the same year, actually in the same days, I was starting to work. I was starting my professional career, and I was joining a German fashion brand, actually a group of brands at the time, Hugo Boss, in what it would have later have become their sustainability team. So when I was preparing my speech today, I tried to remember how was it back then to work in sustainability. And work in sustainability in 2010 was quite different from today. First of all, a very few brands, so I'm not talking about all the industry sectors, but in fashion, a very few brands had a sustainability team back then. And definitely those teams were smaller than the one that you would imagine from the first picture here. Maybe 2, we were 3. But anyway, 1 year after, in 2010, there was no team even in Hugo Boss. And sustainability was usually seen as the cherry on top. So it was definitely not integrated in the serious business activities. It was something decorative that would be nice to have to complement the storytelling of what the company was seriously doing. And another important thing that I really remember as something I heard so many times was the belief that sustainability was a tool to sell more. It was seen like a tool to sell more. So the belief was that customers were willing to pay a premium price to buy sustainable products. I heard this sentence really a lot of time, and I've never seen it in reality, I have to say, in fashion at least. If it was true, of course, it wouldn't exist any Shine or Temu or anything else. But the belief was that really sustainability would create the occasion to ask for a premium price to customers. And the last point in the last picture you see here was about LCA. LCA in fashion 15 years ago was pretty new. So there were really a very few literature examples already available. And the book you see there, it has been published 2 years before, 2008, and it was the book where I learned my first notions on LCA. And really, when you were looking in internet for some examples, literature examples and reference about LCA, if you were lucky, you were finding cotton T-shirts, and that's it. So if that was sustainability in 2010, you can imagine how it was the communication on sustainability in 2010. It was pretty much a jungle, so every brand could freely invent icons, invent names, invent definitions, decide that something was sustainable, while maybe it was just legally compliant. And I was lucky enough to work for a company, a German company, where the concept was, let's stay on the safe side. So we never actually participated in this competition, let's say. But it was everywhere, and there was really quite a large freedom to say whatever we wanted. Then some important milestones started to happen, both in fashion sustainability and in my personal working experience. And one of the first ones was the eco-label criteria revision. I was engaged in that as a stakeholder. Probably there are other people here that did the same job back then, and especially in two eco-labels criteria that were the clothing and textiles in 2013 and then footwear in 2016. So, let's say not for the first time, but one of the first times, brands were told that if they wanted to communicate on product sustainability, they had to follow some rules, let's say. Then the directive on non-financial reporting. That is also, it was also quite a milestone for us at Hugo Boss, because we were already publishing our sustainability report. We started in 2013, but with this directive, large companies have been told that they had to publish a sustainability report. They had to have some transparency and also responsibility in what they were reporting and what they were telling about their non-financial performances. And of course, this also gave us quite a stronger recognition and credibility, because we, of course, internally in the company were the cherry on top. So we were definitely not taken so much seriously. But from that moment onwards, it started to be clear that sustainability was not a trend. It was something that were meant to stay and to improve and increase. Then, of course, we spoke about it before, the UN agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. So comprehensive framework, super clear and easy to use, and we still nowadays use it to align our ESG strategies. Then coming to recent years, the CSRD. So now regarding the communication of sustainability, with the CSRD, it's clear that sustainability report needs to be an anchoring point for our communication. So we cannot communicate anything that we wouldn't also write in our sustainability report, with all the constraints that we have to do so. So again, the bar has been raised. And then last year, two important directives. One is the Empowering Consumers for the Green Transition, and one is the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulations. And the point here is that consumers now are clearly seen as stakeholders that deserve to have meaningful information on the performances of the products they buy, also from the point of view of sustainability. So this information needs to be easily accessible, needs to be easy to understand, and authentic and true. So focusing on the eco-design for sustainable product regulations, I would like to speak about two elements. The first one is the product performance, because here it arrives, finally, the life cycle assessment and the life cycle management. Because now the attention is on the whole life cycle of the product. It doesn't, a brand is not requested to communicate only on the performances of the finished good, like its functionality, but really what the customer deserves to know is how the product has been produced, where, by whom, how much is going to last. So the durability is key, and especially in fashion luxury, because you are in a high target price, so durability is relevant. Then you have to tell how the product is going to be dismissed, if it's going to be repairable, recyclable, and how can the customer intervene to prolong the useful life cycle of the product. So the supply chain is under the spotlight, and the life cycle assessment, life cycle management is a storytelling tool because it gives you all the content and then you have to communicate it in the right way. And the second element is about the information sharing, because brands are requested to not only measure this performance, but also to share, to communicate these informations through the digital product passport and the labeling and all the channels. So again, the green claims, but also the social claims, needs to be clear, verifiable, measurable, authentic, specific, and so on. And they need to be backed up by official third-party certifications, and they need to be coherent with other forms and channels of communication, such as the sustainability report. In 2 years from now, especially in my sector, in the fashion sector, all items will be having a digital product passport containing this information. So this is quite a good milestone for us and a good challenge that the sector is experiencing, especially because brands need to rely on a solid set of rules and methodology to do so. And this is true for many reasons. One of them is that there are some trade-offs between the different parameters that you see there. Because you might design a product to be durable, but this comes at the expenses of, for example, the possibility to disassemble it and recover valuable materials. Or you might design a product to be easily repairable, but this might imply that you use more resources, so the footprint increases. So when a brand needs to communicate something controversial, of course, there is always a lot of attention in doing so, and we need to follow the same rules, and those rules to be super clear to avoid any misunderstanding or potential issue. So now, today, communication in sustainability after 15 years has dramatically changed. First of all, and we saw with EcoInvent how it's important to rely on solid data, it's also important to consider that primary data are always the good choice, let's say. So everything that you cannot collect, which is the vast majority, you need to rely on solid data set. But the more every brand can contribute to this collecting new data and measuring its own supply chains, the better, because of course now is not like in 2010, there are a lot of references, a lot of LCAs available, but when you communicate to your customer, you want to be sure you're telling the story of your specific product. Of course, communication needs to be backed up by official certifications, and one important point that I experience every day at work is the importance of the collaboration between the sustainability team and the marketing and communication departments. Because, of course, their goal is to simplify the message, to make it super clear, and our goal is to avoid it to be trivialized, so too simple and maybe not correct anymore. So the collaboration is always crucial to get something good. Communication needs to be balanced because there are the two extremes risk which are very easy to face, which is on one side the greenwashing and on the other side the greenhashing, which we are experiencing more and more nowadays, because especially in fashion there is a lot of fear. So let's say the solution is not to communicate, but that is again something that we need to avoid. And communication is also the occasion, the opportunity to educate customers. So even in luxury, where most of the time, if not every time, the purchasing decision is not, let's say, due to sustainability. So the customer is not buying tote bag because it's sustainable as a brand, but because they like the brand, or they like the style, or it's a status symbol, or whatever other reason. But anyway, communicating about sustainability of that bag that you chose for other reasons really can teach and can disseminate some know-how that is important that customers have, because the more knowledgeable customers are, the more the expectations are high towards the brands, and there is an improvement of all the sector. It has to be coherent with other forms of communication, as I said before, and it has to be telling the story of products. So again, life cycle assessment and life cycle thinking needs to be there, because the customer is not only interested in the final product, but in its history. And not only the customer, but every potential stakeholder. Speaking about that, I would like to show you a quick video. Let me see if it works. No? How can I use? Yeah. Okay, this is TOTS Passport. It's our project on the digital product passport. And you should have seen in this video one element of this project that makes it quite complex, which is that it's applied to actually two families of products. One is the Gommino that you saw, which is the iconic TOTS driving shoes. And another one is the D-bag, which is another family of products, bags. That is actually the one that you saw in the picture there with our colleague working on it. Both families are customizable. So many other times there are projects on DPPs that are focusing on one material or one raw material suppliers. In this case, we have hundreds of potential combination of technical and aesthetic details, because the customer is actually happy and requested to choose between materials, colors, aesthetic details, and all the features of these two products, so that there are really hundreds of combinations and dozens of suppliers that potentially are involved in that production line. So this element of complexity is actually complemented by the simplicity of what the customer is asked to do with the digital product passport, with TOTS Passport. Because as you saw in the video, there is the NFC chip embedded in the sole, and scanning that chip, the customer can access first the certificate of authenticity, so the value of the shoe over time is guaranteed by that. And that is stored in the private blockchain from Aura Blockchain Consortium, which is one of the partners that we had in this project. But it can access a whole range of benefits, from the extended warranty to the digital experiences in the omni-channel platform that are customized on him or her. It can have a dedicated client advisor. It can access a lot of events and experiences that are, again, customized and that want to create a higher trust, a higher relationship, a better relationship with the customer. So it was important, these aspects, because in this case, digital product passport, which is something we do because the legislation is leading us into that direction, and it's the opportunity for us to speak about sustainability, because there is a lot of content about what we do in sustainability inside the DPP. It was also an occasion for marketing and communication to have their say in this project. So to use this opportunity to actually reinforce the trust with our customers. And another point is that it's also used to convey and to tell the heritage and the story of the brand. Because in the DPP there are all the information on the history of that specific model, but also the history of who produced it. So again, the supply chain is crucial here. And we took a picture of all the artisans that worked in the Gommino project, in the Gommino product production line. And in the DPP, the customer can actually see with names, job titles, and the picture of exactly who did each part of the supply chain and each handcrafted piece of working. There are 7 phases of work involved, and the attention is really on the artisan's job. So this was also for us the opportunity to highlight the value of what our artisans create for the heritage and the pure essence of the brand. So again, the digital product passport can be not only a tool for sustainability, to speak about our ESG strategy, that of course is there, and it's the TOTS Pact that you see there, where PACT is the acronym for people around us, culture and territory, the 4 pillars of our strategy. But it's really something that can be used and should be used to preserve the heritage and the values of the brand and to reinforce the trust between the brand and its customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Michela. And I want to really thank you, all the speakers today. It was a very interesting. We went through different perspectives, different product. So I think we learned a lot. I know that I ask you a lot because you have to follow for a couple of hours. But that's not the biggest challenge of this LCM. So I have a couple of tips for tomorrow. So we will start with the plenary at 8:30. So please be on time. And you can sit in all the main room. What I mean with that? You have this. So that's your Bible for the next days. So please look where you want, which is the session that you want to attend from 9:30 or 9:35, and choose the room for attending the plenary. So we will split in all 6 rooms the main plenary. Why I say that? Because then after 9:30, you have 5 minutes to reach your room. So better that you sit already there. So this is a bit the rules when you see plenary, then look the session after that and sit in the room. The rest, we take care of it, okay? Don't worry. Another small tips, because I know that it will be not easy tomorrow, but trust us. So follow always people with this scarf or with this T-shirt. They are all friends or all support. 68 people for you to support you and guide you through LUMSA. So we are not here tomorrow, we are in LUMSA. And now enjoy the Italian aperitif.